We'll call the meeting to order. Thank you all commissioners for showing up. It was really nice of you to do that. The team has been preparing for this presentation for 3-4 months now, I believe. And wordsmithed done it over and over, done a variety of different things. So first of all, I want to thank them for all their hard work. But we're launching into the sales tax extension. Furnace had the brilliance doing this in 2006. And the commission looked at it and kind of wondered about it, but it's really responsible for the great infrastructure the city of Fargo has, and it's just worth so much money. It's just unbelievable. But the public bought into it, 69% voted yes, and wanted this to have happen. So we're going to explain the effect it has on us and how important it is for us. And this is kind of officially, this is to let the commissioners, any questions or things you have about it, they wondered about or whatever, it's a time to ask. But what I kind of specifically asked the different directors is to say, how did we spend the money? Because the taxpayer is going to say, how did you spend the money? And was it spent wisely? And there are no extra frills. This was all on our infrastructure and maintained there. And I think Nathan would say that success of the diversion is the fact that we had backed this up as well and have helped cover that cost as well, in which we didn't have to go to mills or something else to make up those costs. So, Brenda, are you taking it away?
I am starting it today. So good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. We are glad to be here today to start the discussion on the City of Fargo infrastructure sales tax. With the sales tax not ending till 2028, we may be asking why. Why now, right? We're early, we're here early, talking about early. But as we consider our long-range projects, we do need to understand what our funding will look like moving forward and how that will impact the financial support of our core infrastructure projects. You know, for example, when we look at our federal funding projects, Tom's projecting out 4 years. So we need to understand, is the city going to have funds to bring to the table to support those projects? So today presenting, we will have Tom Knockmoose, our city engineer, Troy Hall, our water utility director, and Jim Hossauer, our water reclamation or our wastewater utility director. There'll be a lot of information presented today. In fact, when we were originally looking at the slide deck, our number of slides got up pretty high and we decided we needed to split it into 2 presentations to allow time for conversation and discussion also. And so today we will be discussing the history of our sales tax, our infrastructure sales tax use, along with the core projects that the infrastructure sales tax had supported. We will close with summary and what the next steps look like. As we go through each section, I will ask, we do pause at the end of every section, so if you have a question on streets, water, or wastewater, we can pause and answer them at that time. The infrastructure sales tax was a proactive recommendation stemming from the 2005 master plan, and it was designed to secure Fargo's water supply, treatment, and distribution, as well as the wastewater collection, treatment, and distribution. The initiative was driven by 4 key factors. First, were the infrastructure needs, ensuring that our infrastructure is robust and dependable. And then we needed to accommodate and support the growth that we have within the city. We needed to provide a stable financial solution for our long-term projects that cross generations. And lastly is the 69.4% public support and gaining that crucial backing from the Fargo residents. In 2006, Mayor Bruce Furnace delivered a clear, the infrastructure sales tax, a clear message that the infrastructure sales tax should fund the following projects with minimal rate increases. All planned wastewater utility improvements, an equal amount of water utility improvements, flood control projects, and street improvements. Mayor Furness was also joined by Commissioners Cosgriff, Williams, Coates, and Mahoney in advancing the solution to prepare for Fargo's future. In 2008, the citizens of Fargo supported the infrastructure sales tax with a 69.4% approval voting, knowing the investment would cross future generations. Today, the city of Fargo has a 2.25% sales tax, which is made up of 1% to the flood control, a quarter cent to public safety, and 1% infrastructure, which we are discussing today. As I was looking at our 2.25% sales tax, I also looked across North Dakota just to see what does that compare to. So at West Fargo, they're at 2.5%, Grand Forks is at 2.25%, Bismarck is at 2%, and Minot is at 2%. The City of Fargo's growth plan looked at the populations within 50-mile increments. Fargo is a regional hub that provides services to a large population of non-residents, as you can see when we look at the different mile markers in the circumference around Fargo. Non-residents will use and contribute to the wear of our infrastructure, our streets, water, and wastewater. And the infrastructure sales tax ensures that non-residents contribute to the infrastructure that they also rely on. In 2024, the 1 cent infrastructure sales tax generated approximately $34 million for core infrastructure projects, which benefited all areas of Fargo, not just the growth or localized areas. You will see this illustrated in a future slide. I will now hand it off to Tom to discuss our streets.
Thank you, Brenda, and good morning. Happy to be here to talk about this important funding tool that we use in the city of Fargo. So first of all, we rely on 4 funding sources for funding our streets in our engineering CIP. Those being Prairie Dog, federal funds, sales tax, and special assessments. Those first 2, Prairie Dog funds and federal funds, are both really important and provide significant value. Unfortunately, as we've seen in the past couple of years, they're not consistently reliable. And that's where sales tax really comes in. It's really the only stable, recurring funding source available to us and is really essential for long-term planning. So one of the ways in which we use sales tax predominantly is through pavement preservation projects. And these projects are arguably the most important projects in our annual CIP. We use this approach to extend the life of our pavements in a cost-effective and prudent manner, reducing long-term costs. So again, this is done through timely maintenance, through low-cost preventative treatments that we apply at the right time. And they sustain the condition and value of our pavement by maintaining optimal pavement condition and extending the service life. And it provides quality service to our residents and businesses throughout our community. You've seen this before, and I like to share it. We know that pavement in the first 40% of pavement life has about a 15% drop in quality. The next 15% of the pavement life has about a 40% drop in quality. And so we really use these pavement preservation projects to make those timely improvements because a dollar spent at the time which the pavement has dropped about 15% in quality would otherwise cost $8 if we let it just drop the next 15% of the pavement life. So there are a number of different ways in which we do this. So I have a few images of that. The first being crack sealing. We do this across the entire city every year on select roadways. We also do seal coat projects. Seal coats are a tool we use for pavement preservation, typically take place approximately once every 8 years. We also do mill and overlay projects. Really depends on the type of roadway classification, but these vary between once every 12 years and once every 25 years, more frequently on roadways like arterials, less frequently on roadways like locals. We also do concrete spot repairs. These are just really localized repairs on concrete roadways throughout town in which we fix buckling that's occurred or any other type of emerging issue like that. We also do partial depth repairs and full depth repairs on concrete pavement, and also do diamond grinding to improve roadway surfacing. So here are just a few examples of some of those projects. We did a project on 13th Avenue a few years ago, address a lot of those localized repairs or localized issues and improve the roadway significantly. Again, here's another example on 42nd Street South. So another thing to mention, infrastructure sales tax reduces the amount that would otherwise be paid through special assessments to maintain and reconstruct our streets. And we can really see the impact of this on a couple different types of projects. So the first being a mill and overlay project. If we were to special assess 100% of the cost to our residents, the cost to a typical property would be about $4,000. But because we have sales tax, we're able to reduce that and fund a portion of those improvements with sales tax dollars. And so we reduce that by about $2,000 or 50%. It's even more significant when we talk about our street reconstruction projects. So I went through and looked at our projects from last year to understand what the true cost of the property owner would be if they 100% paid for the improvements to reconstruct the street. And so on 9th Street South, a typical property would see a cost of about $64,000. But because we have sales tax and because we're able to buy down those special assessments, it gets reduced 91% down to $5,600. On 9th Avenue South, again, the true cost was about $39,000, but because we're able to use sales tax to buy that down, significantly reduce it by 85%. On Lilac Lane, about $29,000, that gets reduced 80%, again, down to that $5,600. The reason why that's the same, again, we've talked about how we cap our special assessments, and so that's why that reduced number is the same in all these situations. On Hickory Street, the true cost would have been about $32,700. That gets reduced down to $5,600. So on average, across all those projects, the average would have been $41,000, but we're able to reduce that 86% down to $5,600. So you might be asking, where have we used sales tax dollars on streets? And the answer is pretty simple. It's nearly everywhere in town. The infrastructure sales tax has been used citywide to fund pavement preservation, rehab, and reconstruction projects. And the map that you see here on the right-hand side shows every location across the city in which we've used infrastructure sales tax on streets since the inception of the sales tax. With that, happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you, Tom. Now we'll talk about water. I'm going a little more scripted than I normally do, so we'll just make sure I cover the information. So we'll switch. Yeah, for water, these slides focus more on past core infrastructure projects that we've completed using the sales tax. We understand that water rates are very important to our residents and businesses. So I will show how we've used sales tax to keep water rates regionally low and while still working to provide high-level water service. So this slide describes how the water utility works financially, operates with revenue, expenses, transfers out. Again, we're mindful of the balance of keeping water rates, which customers care about, and providing good infrastructure for reliable water service. The water utility actually uses a financial model for prioritizing and timing our capital projects and to forecast water rates. A key takeaway from this slide is that rate revenue and sales tax work together to pay debt service and fund infrastructure project. Many of the water projects we do are multi-generational. So moving into the revenue side, revenue into our water fund, rate revenue is our largest source of revenue that we use. Sales tax is the second largest, with the significant impact on keeping Fargo water rates low compared regionally. Another source of revenue is grant funding. We've received about $52 million for our capital projects over the past 15 years. We're authorized for about another $24 million in grant money, mostly with the lead service line replacement project, which will start this year. The last revenue source relates, I'm going to bring up the expense side. The last revenue source relates to state revolving fund reimbursements and is tied to capital projects expenses on the other side. This is really we pay contractors out and the revenue comes back in, so it's really kind of a wash there. But it's paid mostly to contractors as the construction occurs. Exact project expense or eligible project expenses as we do capital projects come back as in reimbursement through SRF. The other thing to think about on the expense when we do capital projects, they're more for the larger projects, but we actually do cash run some of the smaller projects as we build our financial models. So just keep that in mind. And then getting on with the SRF program, I'd like to talk a little bit about that because we really get good loan terms to do our projects. These projects are difficult to cash fund because they're very expensive. For example, our membrane water treatment plant. And after building the generational or multi-generational projects through the SRF program, we pay the debt service with good loan terms. Typically, they're 2% over 30 years, or they can be better. Using the SRF loan program, we keep water rates lower and spread out the cost over many years, much like a home mortgage would occur. You do the large, can fund it over time. Other water utility expenses are operating expenses and professional services that we use that fund our just day-to-day operations. And then the last thing we'll talk about is transfers out. This is really normal for water systems, but we do pay the water portion. So we work with Tom as a team and Tom and his crew as a team to fund the water portion of his capital projects through engineering. And then we also transfer about 20% of our total, well, it's exactly 20% of our total revenue to the general fund and to fund other city functions. And this is really normal for a water system. Most water systems do that. So that kind of covers how we run operationally. And again, we do use a financial model and master planning to plan all this. One thing I don't really talk about much with at the commission levels is our raw water quality. And our water quality or raw water quality in Fargo is very difficult to treat compared with the water systems regionally. And I don't talk about that much. We use both Red River water and Cheyenne River water as our source for our treatment plants. And it's because there isn't sufficient groundwater in the area, we have to use surface water. So just for example, West Fargo joined us as a regional customer in 2016, and that's because their groundwater levels were going down and it wasn't sustainable. Also on the east side of us, Moorhead switched to the Red River as a primary source in about 1960 because their groundwater levels were going down. So in Fargo, both of our rivers have much more organic material concentration and inorganic salts such as hardness compared to most surface water systems. So some systems, like they'll get one or the other, we get both. We get hammered with both. So that really drives our treatment technology. One other thing I'd like to mention is we do participate with other water systems in the Red River Valley that use the Red River in what's called a water supply working group. And that's under the Red River Basin Commission, which Commissioner Pepcorn is the current chair. So that's a subgroup, and collectively we talk about water quality and quantity issues with our source water in the Red River. So moving on to our treatment technology. So to deal with this difficult river water, we have 2 advanced water treatment plants that work together to achieve our tap water quality goals and meet EPA regulations. And because we have most driven by our raw water, we have most of the most advanced treatment technologies in the water industry. Fargo is kind of a demonstration plant in which other water systems come to visit to look at what's available out there. So on the top row, we have an older 30 million gallon per day lime softening water treatment plant in which all the treatment processes have been modernized and updated in the past about 6 years. And you can see listed the water quality challenges and supporting treatment processes in this slide. Then we also have a newer membrane water treatment plant that uses reverse osmosis and other technologies to deal with the river water quality challenges. Water quality challenges and processes are shown kind of on this slide. So just in using both water treatment plants together all the time for normal operations, we're actually able to operate with the difficult water quality cost efficiently in treating the rivers and meeting regulations on our tap water quality. Not used to reading on a script, but I'm getting through it. Then this one is covers water projects that we've done, water supply and treatment. And these water supply and treatment were categories in the original 2005 master plan. The 2005 master plan in water was part of what initiated the original vote on sales tax. We've completed several projects for core infrastructure in water supply and treatment areas and are using today for reliable water service. This is what we have used the infrastructure sales tax along with water rates to construct. I'm not going to cover all of these in this. We talked about the water treatment plants, but I'd more like to focus on the one kind of in the lower right, the regional emergency water supply drains 27 improvements. This project is already built and operational to convey Red River Valley water supply project water from the Cheyenne River to the Red River intake to our treatment plants. This project can also be used in the short term as a fully redundant water supply for a shorter duration using reservoir water from Valley City while the Red River Valley water supply project is being constructed and finished. And with this particular project, instead of building a large diameter pipeline through Fargo, which is very expensive through an urban area, what we did is we built a lift station with pumps that pumps water out of the Cheyenne River, gets it into a channel, and then it just flows naturally by gravity all the way to the water treatment plant. It's about 9 miles away or so by pipeline. So that's just a much more, much lower cost method of conveying water through town, and will save money to ratepayers long term. Again, other projects are important, but I don't have time to cover them today. Moving to the storage and distribution side of things, these were also categories in the original 2005 master plan. Again, we use sales tax along with water rates to construct several projects such as water towers and piping projects. Overall, our water towers, just in the past year or so, it actually operates, the water towers operate like it was originally envisioned in the 2005 master plan. So that was kind of cool. It took a couple of decades, but we finally got there. Pretty cool. So another thing I'll mention on this slide is we work together with engineering, but cast iron water main replacement through the engineering projects has been very important in reducing number of water main breaks. This also improves water quality getting to homes and businesses. And currently we spend about $4 million annually in investing in water main replacement as cash. We have set up water infrastructure on the south side to improve pressure and fire flow on the south side of Fargo. Also, we have built infrastructure to provide regional service to West Fargo and Cass Rural Water. We've set up for growth south as the diversion is being completed. And then just so you understand, the regionally service actually improves our water rates to Fargo residents and businesses by about 19%, and I'll show that a little bit in a slide coming up. One additional item regarding the sales tax that I'd like to talk about is that the financial benefit of this infrastructure sales tax all, in my opinion, goes to Fargo residents and businesses. Through the regional rates, we, through the regional rates, our consecutive users pay their share of operating costs and debt service. So the benefit financially goes to Fargo residents and businesses in spreading out fixed operation costs and debt service, mostly debt service mostly as SRF loan to a larger population, and this lowers water rates. The benefit to regional customers is more, I would say, indirect in that we provide reliable water service and quality to meet water quality regulations. So that kind of covers what we've done. For this slide, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time. It shows past work that we've completed. However, we have more to do. The Red River Valley Water Supply Project is being constructed now, and since there's more work to do, sales tax can play an important role in keeping water rates to Fargo residents and businesses regionally low. Our facility on the right side needing the most improvement this time is our residuals or sludge plant. This is one of the next projects on our priority list. The current sludge plant is high maintenance and doesn't operate very efficiently with the new membrane plant. And then one key thing more, I talk about SRF loans on the bottom there. One key thing is that we are constructing, in most cases, multi-generational projects to provide reliability and efficient service. As previously mentioned, the SRF loan program has low interest rate loans, typically 2% or less, and sometimes have associated grants. It is fair to have project costs spread over time to the people that actually use it, and it also lowers water rates. One last thing on the SRF loan stuff is we're fortunate in North Dakota to have the SRF loan program. It is less competitive in North Dakota, so in other states it's actually competitive. So we get the value of these really low interest rates, whereas other probably states, say like across the river to the east there, they would be probably paying higher interest rates on their project. So it's a really good program that helps Fargo customers. The next slide just shows the really big project. Red River Valley Water Supply is likely the most important future project for the water system. It is currently under construction and scheduled for completion. This is the exact slide that Senator Hovind showed a few weeks ago in his great work to get the federal funding for the project, which will lower costs for Fargo residents and businesses. Another thing with this is the Bank of North Dakota, to our knowledge, it gave the best loan terms ever given to a North Dakota project. For this project, it uses debt shaping, where it's interest only at first, to allow water systems to grow their rates into paying for this, which is very cool. The loan is 2% over 40 years, again with debt shaping. Extending the sales tax will help pay for the Red River Valley Water Supply Project and keep rates regionally competitive. Next, I have two more slides here, but this is a rate survey to show what sales tax has helped with our rates. In Fargo, for the average household, we are in about the lower third of water rates regionally, and we are holding them steady for 26, which potentially would move us down the list a little bit. Using sales tax, we have kept Fargo rates, I would say, artificially low, and also able to build core infrastructure projects and provide good service. And then just since 2008, since sales tax became a thing, we've really used up that capacity over time. So it's really built into our financial model. So moving ahead, since it's being used, we would, we have to cover it some way or another. So, and then the last slide I have, and then I'll turn it over to Jim, is we have what I'll call rate containment strategies to help keep water rates low as we reasonably can for Fargo residents and businesses. Sales tax at 20% or 26% or $11.17 per month is the most impactful. So without these strategies, on the left side, our average residential water bill would be estimated at $67.75. Being we're able to use these strategies, it's actually about $43 for the average residential bill, which is a reduction of $24.75 per month. And then just a simple calculation using today's dollars. If we did this, looked at this over a 20-year period with sales tax, it's actually kept about $5,900 in our ratepayers' pockets over the duration of the sales tax. And visitors to Fargo who use infrastructure have contributed a significant portion of that $5,900. So, and then just the regional. And one other thing I'll point out with this slide is that with infrastructure sales tax, it really has been a catalyst for all this. So without, say, infrastructure sales tax, we likely wouldn't have built the membrane water treatment plant or the timing of it. So yeah, sorry. But has been kind of a catalyst. So if we didn't have the sales tax, we probably wouldn't have been able to build the membrane treatment plant at the time. So we wouldn't have had the capacity to provide West Fargo water to lower our rates. Also with our grants, just using the word regional in our application helps us with that. So it's really helped all this. It's kind of like dominoes. If you don't have sales, it kind of falls apart. So the last item I'll say with operational efficiencies, that's more specific to the membrane treatment plant. The membrane treatment plant is actually more efficient to treat water than the older plants. So we use them both together. But all in all, the sales tax has been a great value and keeps our residential rates down. And I guess I'll leave it at that. That was a little clunky, but I got the information through, I guess. So with that, I'll turn over to questions. Yes, sir.
So Troy, I have a question for you, and this is for a future meeting, if you don't mind. So what I'd like to see is what we're charging for city residents in Fargo, what the rates are, and West Fargo,
Yep.
and Cass Rural Water, just what the rates are comparative-wise, if you don't mind. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yep,
And then
I
also,
do.
same thing for wastewater too. I think it'd be good to know, and also residential versus commercial. So if you could have that for us just for future information, I think that'd be good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, good morning. Thanks again, Troy. And as mentioned earlier, I'm Jim Hausar. I'm the Water Reclamation Utility Director. For the sake of avoiding any kind of confusion, I'm going to talk about wastewater so we know that we're on the dirty water side as opposed to the clean water side. So a lot of similarities between the water utility and the wastewater utility as far as revenues and expenses go. We have rate revenue, which is from our residents, commercial, and outside users. We have 14 outside users. West Fargo and Horace are our two largest outside users. Infrastructure sales tax, very important for our operations. That's why we're talking about it today. Grant funding. On the wastewater side, we don't have the opportunity to have as many grants like State Water Commission grants as they do on the water side, but we have been fortunate to be able to use FEMA pre-disaster mitigation grants. In fact, we just completed a levee project or a flood control project around the wastewater treatment plant. SRF reimbursement. Then as far as expenses, we have many millions of dollars of capital improvements, whether it's new infrastructure or old infrastructure, it needs attention. Operating expenses, chemicals, energy, staff, salary and benefits, professional services, planning, design, and construction, and debt service, of course, very similar to the water utility. We also support the engineering CIP to pay for the utility share of street projects. For example, when a road is reconstructed, water and the wastewater pay for the infrastructure underneath that as far as the water and wastewater infrastructure. Then, of course, the transfer to the general fund. So some of the projects that we've done that have been funded with infrastructure sales tax since 2008 to 2015, the largest one was the 45th Street Interceptor project. This was a $63.5 million project. It involved the installation of a third major interceptor and 2 large lift stations. It alleviated capacity issues with the west side interceptor and allowed for growth to the south. It also helps convey wastewater from West Fargo and Horace, and it also helps manage our wet weather flow, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a second here. But the one thing you can't lose sight of is our ordinary daily infrastructure rehab and repair of our current infrastructure. Many millions of dollars of infrastructure that's there, For example, we have 70 sanitary lift stations that we take care of, 100 miles or over hundreds of miles of collection system piping, and then the wastewater treatment facility. We also fund interceptor sewer extensions for growth. One point of reference here is you look at 70 sanitary lift stations for Fargo, a city similar to us like Boulder, Colorado has 2 sanitary lift stations. So we have our own unique issues here being flat in Fargo, and that's one of them. So when I talk about sanitary sewer interceptors, it's essentially a large diameter pipe in the ground that conveys wastewater from certain regions or certain sections of town. For example, looking at this map here, you can see the yellow line up there. That's the Broadway interceptor that essentially follows Broadway. That was built in the 30s, and we're still utilizing that every day. The purple line is the West Side Interceptor that was installed in the 70s, and that extends from 32nd Avenue South all the way to the wastewater plant. And then the red line is the 45th Street Interceptor. That was put into service in 2009. And again, one of the parts of that project was the County Road 20 lift station. You can see that large lift station. It's a 50 MGD station to where we can divert all flows from all these different interceptors, divert it up to there and pump our wastewater to the lagoons. That would be in the event of any type of an emergency, heavy rain event, or a catastrophic event. Some of the projects funded by sales tax from 2016 to 2024, we had what we called the Broadway Interceptor Sanitary Sewer Overflow Reduction Project. That was a $23.5 million project. And essentially, just to give you a little backstory there, as we look at older parts of town, there's a lot of businesses, a lot of properties that have like roof drains connected to the sanitary sewer. There's parking lots connected to the sanitary sewer and as well as sump pumps. Instead of trying to find all those connections of all stormwater into the sanitary sewer, we just decided to install a dedicated force main to essentially move all that extra water to the wastewater plant. If we wouldn't have done this, every time it rained, at a half an inch of rain or an inch of rain, we would run the risk of having sewer backup in some of the older parts of town. This project alleviated that concern. We also recently just finished our regional wastewater treatment facility expansion. That was a $151 million project. And it doubled our treatment capacity for a regional population of 271,000 people. Then, of course, we had our regional service connections to West Fargo and Horace. The agreements were signed in 2017. We started receiving flow from them in 2020. And then again, like I mentioned before, just the daily infrastructure rehab and repair of all those lift stations and the hundreds of miles of collection system. So again, during this time frame, you can see the plant expansion that took place during this time, the Broadway Interceptor. Then, of course, our service connections to West Fargo and Horace. One thing I want to point out is West Fargo and Horace paid for their infrastructure to get to our point of connection, and we paid for everything after that, so we weren't responsible for that. So looking forward, 2026 and beyond, one of the concerns that we're worried about is the West Side Interceptor. This is estimated at $50 million, and again, it's one of 3 major interceptors, and it conveys 33% of the flow. It was installed in the 70s. We've had some recent failures, upwards of $250,000 to repair those. It generally follows 42nd Street, so this is very difficult construction. The pipe is 20 feet in the ground, so just imagine doing a major repair or rehab on a pipe that it would be close to 42nd Street and 13th Avenue, for example. Then, of course, we had a regional wastewater treatment facility solids dewatering project. This is going to be estimated at about $30 million in the future. What we want to do is we want to automate our solids handling in lieu of paying staff and paying overtime. Currently, we're generating so many solids with our new treatment process that we have staff coming in on Saturdays and on holidays to take care of our solids. So if we could automate that process, we'd be looking forward to that. Then, of course, as we extend 45th Street Interceptor south for growth and regionalization, that adds to the daily infrastructure, rehab, and that type of thing. There's going to be more pipe, more lift stations to take care of. So again, the same map, you can see we're already having conversations about our second connections for West Fargo and Horace. We have to address the West Side Interceptor improvements and the extension of 45th Street south for Fargo growth. So if there's one takeaway from all these slides, the one thing I want to point out here is, as we look at residential monthly wastewater bills with cities that we're compared to all the time. For example, Duluth, their average sewer bill for each household is close to $70. Sioux Falls, close to $54. And then we have St. Cloud, Moorhead, and West Fargo. They're all in the upper 40s. And as you look at Fargo, we're at $25 per household. We're quite proud of that, but we also feel that wastewater infrastructure sales tax is very important to keep those rates low for our residents. Very similar to Troy's slide, we have our containment strategies. Of course, there are grants, low-interest loans, that type of deal. Regionalization helps keep our rates low, saves us $5 to $6 per. But that infrastructure sales tax is very important. Without it, we'd probably have to ask the commission to raise our sewer rates anywhere from $10.50 to $12.50 per household. But it's very important to be able to utilize the infrastructure sales tax. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are some. If not, I'll hand it back to Brenda.
Luckily, I have Tom next to me, making sure my mic's on. So in 2024, the infrastructure sales tax generated approximately $34 million. And so this allowed the city to fund the core infrastructure while sharing our costs with visitors to our community. And what did this cost sharing mean to the residents of and businesses of Fargo? It meant that we were able to have lower utility bills for residents and businesses, lower share special assessments, investment in our core infrastructure, and then being able to share that cost with the non-residents who also rely on our infrastructure. So this is really about residents, businesses, and non-residents all supporting our infrastructure together. Our infrastructure is one of our most valuable physical assets for the city of Fargo. And we need funding stability to continue to maintain and invest in our multi-generational projects in water, wastewater, streets, flood control, and drought. So next steps. As I mentioned at the beginning, this will be the first of 2 presentations. We will be following up with you and to follow up on any questions you have from this presentation, and then also to discuss, what our core infrastructure plan would look like if we can't get the extension approved. We are also working with our local community groups to inform them on the sales tax extension. We'll be looking to City Commission for support on ballot language that will need to be finalized and approved in March for a June 2026 ballot. And with that, we'd all take any additional questions.
I'm just curious, where does Harwood fit in this discussion?
So for
In general, I'm
Well-
not sure our relationship with Harwood. I'm not sure what's changing in the future with their data center coming in or not. I'm just wondering about how that's all looking at moment present and what it will look like.
So right now, our relationship for utilities with Harwood would be that we provide sewer service with them, and we have a sewer service agreement with them.
And
Gas World does that. They don't necessarily take our water. They can pump it from different locations for that. And what we're doing with that is Ian's reached out, we're going to sit down and talk to Harwood and talk about services. So now we've reached out, and Nick has said it's okay to talk to Harwood, and we're going to visit with them about regionalization, how we can work better together.
But Cass Rural Water gets their water from us, correct?
It does, but Troy will explain this.
Yeah, so Cass Rural Water, they actually have 3 different treatment plants, so they can pick and choose where their water comes from and how they serve their customers. And since they're in Cass Rural's service territory, the water that could be, could be through to Harwood, or the Cass Rural can pick and choose where that water comes from. So it doesn't necessarily come from Fargo, but we do provide significant, on the south side, significant water to Cass Rural.
So if you don't mind me asking, what are the other options that Cass Rural Water has?
Well, with Cass Rural, it operates different. Their treatment plants are groundwater. I don't necessarily know the capacities that they have in their treatment plants for future, but I do know on the south side, which they felt it beneficial. So like Horace, we sell water to Cass Rural and then down south to Horace, but they really pick and choose where the water comes from. So, but I don't know exactly their system.
And Commissioner, just one more thing to add as far as on the wastewater side. So they currently pay, so Fargo residents pay $25 per household. Harwood pays that same $25 per household, but there's a surcharge of $11.35 on top of it. So their bill per household is $36, so $11 higher.
This is just my preliminary comment, but we need to start charging other people far more than our residents do. We're subsidizing lots of people that we should not be subsidizing. And so that's, to me, that's an opportunity for enhanced revenue, and that's good. That's good news. Thank you.
All right. This is my last opportunity to ask for this information from the city. And it's our last opportunity to go to the public if it's worthy of going to the public with. And you've all, maybe not all of you have been around, but for years I've had the issue, the notion of being concerned about the implications of a sales tax cap. A lot of people don't know our sales taxes have a cap on it. And when that cap, so big ticket items don't pay the same sales tax small ticket items pay. So it's it's as regressive as a sales tax as you can conceivably have. So what I would like going into this going forward is an analysis of the sales tax cap, the implications of a cap, who else does or doesn't have caps, and what would be the path forward if we as a group decided that we were going to also put it to the public to vote on raising all of our taxes to the cap, removing the cap. Last I knew, and this is probably 8 years ago, that's over $1 million lost revenue per year. And what happens is people go buy something, they may or may not get charged a sales tax, and they most likely don't even go file for the reimbursement from the state. So it's revenue we should, I just want us to analyze this, and for the first time, because we're going to the public with a vote. And this is, we won't have another chance, if this is viable to consider, we won't have another opportunity to explore whether or not to consider erasing or eliminating those caps.
I think, John, the only thing is that you could do it on this tax, but you can't change all the other taxes. You would have to revote the other taxes, and it's a risk for us on the flood tax that goes to 84. We would rather not revote that, but I'll have Ian look into that with Eric and see, you know, if you could, it'd be nice. It would add extra revenue, but if it risks the tax, we would not want to do that. And I'd almost want you to do on this one is to have a separate vote on that. I mean, vote the tax, and then say we want to release the
Caps.
limit caps on this tax, and then they'd have to vote on both of them. Just to your point, we might be losing some revenue. That would be helpful to the city, but I don't want to. Some people get mad about that, and then they'll vote against the infrastructure tax. Rather have that a peer vote, and then if you want to add that let's research it and see what they come up with for you.
And I don't know the history of how it became what it ended up being, you know, and I don't know the conversations that took place in 2009 before that vote, you know, but I just think this is our last chance potentially in my lifetime to explore this and consider it.
Well, and I think we've done, in fact, I know Susan's done quite a bit of research already, and I'll have her jump up if I say anything wrong and go to the podium. But I think that the biggest issue, as the mayor discussed, is I think you can't pick, like a new one can't be different than what the existing ones are. So I think that's the bigger thing. And so it would possibly bring them all forward for vote, but we can get that. And then when I was looking at different sales tax for different municipalities throughout North Dakota, I'll get all that information, because some are capped and some are not.
Thank you.
Then Dave, to your comment, when we figured out rates for other items, we figure out our costs. The revenue we get from West Fargo, I believe, is $3 to $5 million. I don't know, Troy, what it is, but we try to keep it relatively stable, because one of the things is they didn't want to join us and then have us jump rates all the time, like your global companies do or something like that. So a lot of that's negotiated out. We try to do reasonable. We don't try to gouge anybody, but we call reasonable cost to give them the water that they have. So we do try to build something in there. To your point, is City of Fargo residents get the best rate, and the residents get the best rate that we give, but we try to be somewhat reasonable to our neighbors.
Well, I think Commissioner Strand asked about return on investment on some of our developments. What's our return on investment? And that's what the taxpayers of Fargo should be getting from the other users. We should getting a return on our investment. And so
We can show a
to me-
chart of what we've gotten in revenue over the years from West Fargo and Horace. And
I'm just
our
saying-
Sub and our septic, or to wastewater, right, Jim? You're careful about your rates.
I'm just saying, I want a better return on investment. If they're paying the same as us with a small fee, 20% is a good return on investment to me, at least. And especially when you start talking about this, these are all potential revenue generators that we should be looking at. And so you already know that, but we are subsidizing our neighbors, and that we can't afford to do that anymore.
Okay, this is my dumbest question of the day, which is competitive. You know, I believe this last year there was a city in Minnesota that started marketing their water. And somebody's coming in and taking their water and bottling it and selling it. And I don't remember where or what in the details of it, but we have really good water. And I don't know how much excess or not water we have, but we could have a revenue potential from water if we found a source out there that wanted to market water that's as good as our water is. I'm just saying, when you're all bored someday at 2 in the morning, sitting there wondering about what to do with the city for future revenues, I'll put that on the list. But I don't know. I'm just wondering if somebody would buy Fargo water in the bottle. They might.
So just one more question for the next meeting. So some of this is for flood protection, and I will not support this if Minnesota does not start participating in the cost of the building of the diversion. If we're going back to the taxpayers of Fargo for more funding for the diversion, and Minnesota, Clay County, and Moorhead, they have participated zero. If we're doing that, I will not support this, because the city of Fargo, our sales tax, we have stepped up. And Minnesota, Clay County, and Moorhead, zero to this point in the construction of the diversion. That is unacceptable, and at a certain point, you got to put their feet to the fire. And look, it's almost done, and they've paid zero. We have to address that.
You would totally cripple our infrastructure with $35 million a year we get, Dave, so you would totally cripple anything we could do. You can't find $35 million anywhere, so we'll try to utilize it a little amount as far for the diversion, and we just got the 120, so I think that will help us close that gap. Plus, the feds will probably give us an additional $100 million, so we should be able to cover the gap the diversion has with federal money. But I would not put this one at risk. This is the most brilliant tax we've ever had that really has made our infrastructure survive. And if you don't remember it, but I remember it, when we suddenly were going to do our specials at 50%, the neighborhoods really screamed, right, Tom? I mean, that was like, holy cow, we can't go that high. And your specials would jump back to 50%, right, even higher. So you would have all your neighbors upset about their specials. So I think you have to think hard about this. Tax is very critical to how Tom does stuff, Troy does stuff, and Jim does stuff. It keeps our costs down, and we went to be a regional plant because we got some benefits from that. Remember when West Fargo was going to do a water plant for $100 million? I mean, how crazy is that? We hooked them up, Troy, for $3 million, and that saved money. But you have to be careful. You can't gouge the pig, because you have to offer reasonable rates that give us a reasonable return and keep people. In some ways, we have to be a good neighbor. So we can look at that. You can see what we've done. But I think, Jim, you did the same thing, right? You looked at our rates are and make sure we're reasonable. Any other comments or questions?
Well, we'll be back. If you guys do come up with anything, we'll probably do a reach out and we'll probably get you some of the information you've talked about prior to the next meeting. So if it brings up any questions, we can help. We can have a very productive next meeting. And then we will be in front of you, hopefully with language by mid-March for the June ballot.
Do sales taxes require 60% majority?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.